And we are back here at the BrookLAN local with Kevin. I am Charisma Check here with Kevin Miller, and we're going to be commentating our round 2 game today. I'm excited.
Yeah, another exciting match on the cards today. We have Andrew Wilson versus Donte Hill, two veterans of the games that they've been playing for a long time. So excited to see how they do on stream, playing in a brand new format with Open Team Sheet. Probably something they're not used to if they're old timers.
Yeah, and I'm very excited for this game as well because we had a very sort of like I would say a little bit more standard, right? Both of those teams, like players have seen before. We are going to see a little bit of a variation in teams here today. There's a lot of cool innovations I think that Regulation still has to offer. I think a lot of what players are going to see at LAIC is kind of this solved format where you have a lot of the Pokemon and the team options kind of figured out, but we see a lot of these players at these locals is you're able to take advantage of your local scene a lot more, and you're able to have a lot more diverse options because you're not playing in a tournament setting, so it's not as grueling as the 9 rounds of Swiss. We're still in the tri-state area. There's a lot of great players here today.
It's basically a regional, a mini regional.
A mini regional, but I feel like you have a lot more team flexibility at these local level tournaments.
100%. We just saw a Landorus incarnate absolutely take names last round, so the freedom of team building is a lot. You have way more freedom in these locals, I think, rather than in a long tournament. You want a solid set of team mons that are proven to be very good that will do you well in a long tournament.
Yeah, and we do have to remember today's tournament is actually best of 3 as well, so there's no best of 1 gimmicks here today.
No, there is not. Best of 1 gimmicks, save those for the GC when there is no open team sheet and you have to play games as quick as possible so you don't hate yourself after the long day. But we have two interesting teams here for open team sheet best of 3. We see the likes of a strong Sun team with Tornadus, Sunny Day. We have Landorus, Fire, Ogerpon, Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, and of course, when you have a Sun team, you throw a Gastrodon on it to deal with all the water moves.
Of course, and we are going to see a little bit of preview of Donte's team here. We'll talk about it a little bit after, or try to, as this game 1 starts off here. We are going to see the double Genie lead from Andrew. Everybody say thank you, Genies. And a Cresselia and a Rillaboom there from Donte's end. I'm very interested to see how this matchup is really going to play out. As you kind of mentioned before, Andrew's team is opting for that Sun spam, so a lot of Pokemon that really take advantage of that Sunny Day that Tornadus has, as we see it here. Able to just boost up a lot of things. Maybe not boosting the Landorus, but, getting it to be, or not resisted, but, take half damage from those water moves in rain. Donte here also has the Cresselia and the Rillaboom, but also has options like the Landorus, Heatran, Zapdos, and Sneasler. The 3 Pokemon that we've seen here from Donte's do seem to be the most standard of the 3, and a taunt there from the Torn into the Crest.
Yeah, this Cresselia, no Mental Herb, no Terra Dark. It is very taunt susceptible from this Tornadus. And we see Andrew crit the U-turn and gain some positioning here on turn 1.
And I think Donte's team is super interesting. We see 3 standard Pokemon, but I think the move options are where the team kind of shines. The Cresselia isn't necessarily as common, but we actually see Dazzling Gleam and Icy Wind on Cresselia, which I think is super interesting. Usually people have kind of opted for the Psychic and the Moon Blast, but seeing the spread damage and the speed control with the Trick Room and the Lunar Blessing as well is super, super interesting, I think, to see on this Cresselia in this kind of Regulation E meta. We also see it has the Aguav Berry, so it has a little bit more longevity against something maybe like the Urshifu.
Yeah, I think Icy Wind is a very cool move on this Cresselia specifically, as you see you're susceptible to taunt. Trick Room feels optimal there, so you predict the taunt, and you have Icy Wind as good spread damage and good speed control going for the rest of your team. You don't necessarily need to rely on the Trick Room.
But the crazy thing is, right, is because even though you have Icy Wind, this Tornadus here on Andrew's side is actually going to be Cover Cloak, so it won't even get speed dropped. Yes. It's speed dropped.
We see the Rock Slide lock in from the Landorus. So much spread damage going on right now. We see the Cresselia lock another Icy Wind. And like you said, this Tornadus speed is not dropping, but taking a lot of damage. And an Icy Wind from the Gastrodon as well, picking up the Landorus. 4 spread moves we saw on this turn. Where's Pelipper when we needed it last game at Wide Guard?
Exactly, and I think these spread moves just doing what they do best, and that's chip damage across the board. I think both players going for Icy Wind there, right? Realizing that Lando is 4 times weak to it, so your Gastrodon's on the field, you're able to just sit there and click Icy Wind. Both these players, I think, Donte's not really clicking Icy Wind there, I think, for speed control, just trying to get rid of this Tornadus as quick as possible so that your Rillaboom can really thrive.
We see the Rillaboom come out, makes total sense here in front of the Gastrodon. This Gastrodon is Terra Fire, however, to resist those grass moves. So see if Andrew opts for the Terra Fire here on Gastrodon.
Yeah, but I think Andrew actually hovering over that Landorus slot there, playing it a little bit smart. No reason to waste your Terrestrialization yet. You can waste your Terrestrialization yet. You can switch in Landorus and get it Intimidate while you're at it and resist something like a Grassy Glide or, you know, take a Fake Out.
However, this Cresselia has been clicking Icy Wind very much often, so Landorus switching in on an Icy Wind is a risk as much as it gets the Intimidate into this Rillaboom. However, we see the -1 Grassy Glide still pick up the Tornadoes, and this is a single target Icy Wind from a Cresselia if it clicks it here, so we'll see what it opts for. And it does click the Icy Wind, does land. How much does it does to Landorus? Over 50%. Now, Cresselia is run very bulky, usually not a lot of special attack investment, so that is a big hit there from this Cresselia into the 4 times weak to Ice Landorus.
But we are going to see the Ogerpon reveal from Andrew in the back there at full HP coming in, threatening a lot of damage to this Rillaboom. Maybe not so much as the Crest. I think the thing about the Crest is Andrew hasn't really been able to do that much damage to the Cresselia this game. You do threaten it with U-turn damage, but I think the main thing is you're kind of pivoting in and you're clicking those spread moves, but you're not really doing big damage. And I think Ogerpon being on the field now asserts a lot more of that immediate pressure. You have the Terrestrialization that Donte kind of has to consider. You are down 2 Pokemon on Donte's side here, and we are going to see the final Pokemon. That being the Zapdos from Donte's side here with that Rocky Helmet item on it as well. Able, if Andrew does decide to go for a Ivy Cudgel into that Rillaboom slot, the Rocky Helmet damage is going to start to add up on that Ogerpon.
Yeah, we see the Terrestrialization lock in by Andrew, going for this Terrifier Ogerpon, getting that +1 attack, and threatening so much damage with Ivy Cudgel here.
I wouldn't be surprised if it just picks up the KO on Zapdos.
Yeah, Donte very much lacking a boosted Ivy Cudgel switch in here. We do see that move locked in. It goes into the Cresselia slot, and not even Cresselia can live that hit. That is not a critical hit. That is just the power of Fire Ogerpon.
That's just +1 Ogerpon. Like, I think that goes to show the power of Ogerpon, right? It's kind of fallen off in the Regulation E meta, but it still has a place. Like, you're still getting +1. We all realize in Sword and Shield how that kind of turned out with Behemoth Blade, having Zacian get that +1 on switch in. It's kind of the same principle here, except you have Terrestrialization to boost it even farther. And with tools on Andrew's team like that Sunny Day Tornadus, you are able to boost his damage even more. And I think that's going to be a hurdle that Donte has going to have to figure out in a game 2 here. As this Ogerpon just, I think, is threatening too much damage for Donte to really deal with.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of resources at this point, so this Ogerpon can kind of freely do what it wants. Rillaboom does threaten damage in the Gastrodon and a Fake Out here. We'll see if he can take advantage of this turn, but he has to make up some progression pretty quickly to get back into this game.
And I think what's scary as well is Zapdos doesn't really have a damaging move here into the Ogerpon. It actually is opting for, with that Rocky Helmet, it's Pressure, Light Screen, Roost, Volt Switch, and Heat Wave. So it doesn't have something like a Hurricane or a Thunderbolt to really be doing consistent damage to the Ogerpon. And we see just Ivy Cudgel go after it anyways, realizing that Rillaboom is not able to really do anything back. This Rillaboom here opting for knockoff U-turn, Fake Out, and Grassy Glide. No Stomping Tantrum, no high horsepower, no Wood Hammer even just to do a lot of damage. You can't even knock off the Ogerpon. It's just, the Rillaboom can't really do much to this Ogerpon.
And we see Ivy Cudgel go before the Zapdos, outspeeding, picking it up, and now going straight into the Rillaboom. And Ogerpon kind of just cleaned up this game for Andrew, taking game 1.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see how Donte is going to kind of play back, because I think there were a couple turns where Donte was able to play that game just slightly better with positioning wise, where you're able to, I feel like if you get your Landorus in and you are able to save it for the Ogerpon, you're able to negate that +1 that the Ogerpon does get. And if you're able to negate that and deny that +1 that the Ogerpon does get with your own Landorus, you're in a lot better position. And considering that Donte does have the Terrestrialization available on the Landorus, and you are able to go for those super effective Stomping Tantrums if it Terra Fires, Terra Flying, Terra Blast, you're able to do a lot of damage in the Ogerpon. And I think that's going to be a key piece that Donte needs to consider in game 2.
I remember early in this regulation, everyone was so scared to fire Ogerpon. Like you said, it fell off a little bit, but people were so scared that they were running Ability Shield Heatran because Mold Breaker and Ivy Cudgel go through and hit this Heatran on Donte's side, which is normally his really real resistant immunity to fire move. So I think maybe in the game 2 you lean on the Heatran and Landers to try and get rid of it, but if Andrew conserves his Terra, he can click Ivy Cudgel very freely and is no longer an immunity for this Heatran on Donte's side.
Yeah, and I'm very curious as well what Dante's game plan was, not bringing Heatran into a Sun team. Like, it's Flash Power, yes, there's Mold Breaker, but I think just having the option to resist something like the Fluttermane that comes in, right, or just being resistant to the Tornadus. Yes, you have to worry about Landorus, and yes, you have to worry about the Ivy Cudgel from Mold Breaker Ogerpon, but I think the resists that Heatran offers, we saw it in our round 1, just how far resists can go, and I think Heatran is a strong enough Pokemon. It's been in metas since however long, right? It's been around for a long time.
In Generation 5 and 4, so.
But it's been around for a long time, and I think Heatran deserves to come to this game a little bit, especially with that Earth Power, throwing a lot of damage into something like the Terrestrialization Fire. I think what I want to see from Donte this game is really capitalize on the Terrestrialization that Andrew decides to go on, because I think that's where some teams kind of fall short, is you go into a Terrestrialization very early to get a lot of power, but I think if your opponent can play defensively around that and take advantage of your Terrestrializations and you're able to position it, you're able to get a lot of momentum. You're able to swing the game back. So I would like to see that from Donte.
Yeah, interesting. I know maybe it doesn't have the best matchup this game, but I would like to see the Sneasler on stream. Well, I don't know how well it does into the Sun team. It does have Sash. It does have the Focus Sash. That's some kind of longevity. It will live in Ivy Cudgel because of the Focus Sash, so maybe an option that Donte goes into, but I would like to see it on stream if we can see it. But I don't know if it's the right matchup, but we can only hope, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, fast Fake Out is always good, but what are you really competing with there, right? You have the Covert Cloak on Tornadus, and you have a Landorus staring you down with super effective damage. There's no Fake Out wars that are really trying to be won, so there's no really reason for it, and I think Rillaboom with its own Fake Out is fine enough, because Rillaboom's, even though it's in the Sun team, I do agree with actually bringing Rillaboom in this matchup, right? You do threaten something like Fluttermane with Grassy Glide, Ichiyu if it terrestrializes. You want to deal with the Gastrodon, right? Otherwise, its Yawns could be really annoying as well. You want to have a lot of options. I think it's the other team to kind of just be able to fake them out and get yourself in a better position. Kind of like what I was talking about before, where you really want to be able to get in a position against these Sun teams, because if you are, you're able to swing the momentum back in your favor.
Yeah, very much so. I don't know if Andrew adjusts or anything here. He pretty much had a dominant Game 1 victory. I feel like you rely on the Ogerpon and like see if your opponent adjusts. We have the leads from our opponents, the Cresselia, Landorus, Gastrodon, and did we already miss a turn 1? Did it die?
I think we missed a turn 1
we
there.
were talking about the team sheets too much.
But I think the Tornadus there did die turn 1. Not sure how. I think maybe a Rock Slide plus an Icy Wind there from Dante's side. We are going to see the Gastrodon here on the field with the Landorus. So and I think this is a lot more favorable for Donte here.
Yeah, I don't know how, but he takes out the Landorus, the Tornadus on turn 1 and gets himself in a really good position. I think if he can keep up this momentum and position the Cresselia and Landorus in a good spot, he can go on to force a Game 3. But we'll see how Andrew adjusts to losing his Tornadus on turn 1.
Yeah, and I think Donte realizing kind of, we do see the
Sneasler. The Sneasler comes out on stream. Very exciting. We see a U-turn in the Cresselia doing decent damage, and we'll see Andrew's 4th Mon in the back, but I would assume it is the Fire Ogerpon as it was so dominant last game. And
that's very interesting to me, though, I think, because I'm not sure what Sneasler's doing here, but I'm excited to see what it does do on stream here.
I'm not sure if this Tornadus got up a Tailwind on turn 1 or what, but he could have the speed advantage here as we see Cresselia click Icy Wind after Ogerpon comes in after the U-turn, but I'm assuming it got up Tailwind and then died, but I'm not 100% positive. We see double Icy Wind, though, so a whole lot of speed control going around in this turn.
Yeah, well, I would actually argue the opposite, right? Because even though the Tailwind goes up, the Icy Wind is going from the Cresselia, right? I guess you're right? Where they're kind of negating each other. So, like, Dante's idea is if you Icy Wind, right, you're kind of negating the Tailwind turns, but because Andrew has Icy Wind on their own Gastrodon, they're like, no, actually, I'm going to just deny your Icy Wind.
Would you see the Sneasler switch in on an Icy Wind, meaning it does lose its Focus Sash momentum, so maybe not the best place to bring in Sneasler, but we get to see Sneasler, so we're happy.
But the Sneasler actually isn't Unburdened either, or the ability where it gets the boost from I believe it's Unburdened.
Yes.
But it actually is Poison Touch. Yeah. So you have unique interactions. I'm actually not sure how that works.
I think
with Dire Claw and Poison Touch,
yeah,
do you get
it's almost like a 50% chance to poison, I think, at that point. We see the Spiky Shield lock in from the Ogerpon, expecting big damage from the Sneasler or the Fake Out. We see the Fake Out go into the spot and the Sneasler take a little bit of chip damage. We see the Landorus switch in, which could be on an Icy Wind potentially. This could be risky, but we see the Yawn lock in onto the Sneasler. Gastrodon for years and years has been such a threat on the field, being so passive and just threatening the Yawn passive sleep turns. Such a good mon.
Yeah, and if you don't have Rillaboom in the back for Donte here, that Gastron is looking like a massive hurdle you're going to have to clear. Your Cresselia took so much damage, as you saw from that U-turn, and we saw Ivy Cudgel from the Ogerpon do so much damage. So I think if Andrew's able to kind of weigh their Ogerpon and get in a position where they're able to deal with this Landorus, we actually saw the Landorus come in here for free, essentially, because of the Yawn that Andrew opted for there. I think if you're Andrew, you want to get your Ogerpon in a position where you're able to Terastallize Fire, and if you're Donte, you want to preserve your Lando. You want to make sure you're intimidating this Ogerpon down so that it doesn't feel safe to Terastallize in front of you and is always scared of a Terra Blast or a Stomping Tantrum.
Yeah, I feel like at this point it's hard to lock into a move with your Landorus when this Ogerpon could Terastallize. Like, do you click Stomping Tantrum into the neutral Ogerpon, or do you expect it to Terra? Do you click U-turn, Rock Slide? But we see the Ogerpon actually switch out. He pressures his own Intimidate here with Landorus, which I think is a very good switch with 2 physical attackers. Save the Ogerpon for endgame. And we see the Terastallization coming from Donte's side.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is something like a Terra Flying Terra Blast, just to be safe, right? You cover, even if it's Terra Fire, you're not necessarily going for super effective. You just want to start damaging the Ogerpon so that you can switch out Lando and get a KO later in the game.
You also lose your 4 times weakness to a potential Icy Wind here, maybe preserving Landorus for endgame. And this -1 Terra Blast should still do decent damage into Leia, almost does 50% to the opposing Landorus, so still a good... And we see the double up with Dire Claw. Does it pick up a poison? It does not.
It doesn't get any status effect, as a matter of fact. When we are going to see this Icy Wind. That looks like a 3-hit KO on the Landorus, which is super interesting as well. Oh, well, the critical hit explains that.
Yeah, that is
well.
a critical hit. I mean, non-stab boosted, no longer 4 times super effective. We expect the damage to be much less onto this Landorus, so very good, I think, Terastallization from Donte there. And he lets the Sneasler fall asleep.
Yeah, I think that was very interesting. I think Donte realizing that I'm in a position where I need to start fishing for Dire Claw moves or for Dire Claw status effects. So if I go to sleep this turn, that's fine, as long as I don't get a status effect. It is a little unfortunate, right, that you don't see an effect there. Andrew maybe getting a KO here on the Sneasler with that Earth Power on the Gastron. If they do get this off this turn, that could be a potential free switch in for Donte, right? They don't necessarily just need to stay on the field and burn through sleep turns. Andrew maybe getting this Sneasler off the field here, but we are going to see a switch from the Landorus on Donte's side. What is this to do? Cresselia?
Yeah, Cresselia is always your bulky switch in here, recycling the Intimidate on the Landorus. And we see Andrew's Rock Slide, proccing the berry, the Agua berry on this Cresselia. And the Sneasler has to take a mandatory turn of sleep here, so we'll see what the Gastrodon locks in.
Yeah, we actually saw it lock in that Earth Power, so it is going to be able to get the KO on that Sneasler here. Again, giving that free switch back in. I think that Donte actually wanted that turn.
Yeah, I think Sneasler going down there, it did what it needed to do. Like, we got to see it. It got to click Fake Out.
We got to see it. That's what it did. It
went
gave
for
us
the
viewer pleasure.
Yes, it went for the Dire Claw. Unfortunately, it didn't pick up the poison, but chipped this Landorus down in a good spot for Donte to be able to pick up KO here. You can safely lock in Icy Wind with Cresselia and a damaging move here with Landorus and threaten so much into this team where I don't think Ogerpon is a good switch in, so your 2 Monty are very susceptible to big damage. We see Andrew's Landorus faster, locking in Rock Slide, super effective damage, and flinching the opposing Landorus. Cresselia does go for Lunar Blessing, though, preserving the health on these 2 Mons, which I think if he locked in a move there, the damage and speed from Andrew's Landorus would be very threatening.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Depending on the Landorus, speed tiers, right, you're able to just go for a Terra Blast into the Landorus, get a KO, even if you didn't get flinch, right, you pick up a KO on the Landorus, and you force a 2v3, where it's the Gastrodon and the Ogerpon on the field now, and Gastrodon can only click Yawn for so long. It eventually has to do something. We are going to see a switch here from Landorus. Again, resetting that Intimidate, saving up for the Ogerpon, really realizing we do see the Heatran adjustment. Very happy to see this.
Very happy to see the Heatran. Heatran comes out on a Rock Slide. Does it dodge? It does dodge the Rock Slide on the switch in. We see it land, do no damage in the Cresselia. Icy Wind into this Landorus. I think it will pick up, and it does. Good turn from Donte here. Let's see what the Gastrodon locks in. Maybe calling the switch in. Earth Power into this Heatran is very dangerous here. But
I doubt it. Icy Wind makes a lot of sense as well. I think if you go for Earth Power into the Lander slot, like, just sign the match slip. you get the game at that point.
It is a very risky but game-changing play if he was to call something like that. I mean, after you yawn the Landorus in the last turn, like, maybe you call... I mean, you have to call Heatran being in the back, but maybe it's something you do after pressuring the yawn pressure into that slot. But
well, like Andrew actually went for a yawn on the Cresselia, I think correctly calling the target, right? Because with that Lunar Blessing on the Cresselia, you want to make sure you're getting down the Cresselia, right? Because normally with these Cresselias, even though it's the berry against something like a Moongus, normally they run the safety goggles item on the Cresselia, so you're always wanting to target down the Cresselia first, get it to sleep, so then it can't Lunar Blessing and wake up your partner if it's asleep.
Yeah, 100%. We see the Cresselia swap out for the Landers here, pressuring Intimidate into this Ogerpon physical attacker. And we'll see what moves they lock into after this. We see a Terrestrialization coming from Andrew's side. Is this the Fire Ogerpon once again? If he is, he loses the ability to hit Heatran, losing Mold Breaker.
That's exactly what
here.
I was going to say. I think that's super interesting, right? Is you negate the Intimidate that just came in on the Landers here, but now you can't hit the Heatran.
He could just target into the Landers here, and going back neutral with this Terra-boosted Ivy Cudgel could pick up the Landers here, so we'll see what target he locks into. We do see the Ivy Cudgel into the Landers. Neutral Terra-boosted Ivy Cudgel. Does it pick up this Landers? And it does.
Oh, of course it does. That Landers, any sort of chip, again, going neutral, you still have to remember, even if you intimidate this Ogerpon and you bring it to neutral, there's still Terrestrialization.
Yes. The Gastrodon clicking Earth Power into the Heatran and Protect, but I don't know what Donte does here to get rid of this Gastrodon. It feels like it's in such an advantageous position. You're not bringing Rillaboom in this matchup. Really allows this Gastrodon to sit here freely without Terrestrialization.
And that's kind of what I was talking about before, right? Your Cresselia is asleep. It has to take a mandatory turn of sleep. This Ogerpon is going to be able to farm it off. And this Heatran isn't really able to do anything back. It doesn't, even though it's Terra Grass, it doesn't really have Terra Blast to threaten damage back. So you can hope for Heat Wave chip, and hope for maybe a burn on this Gastrodon here to kind of fish your way back in. But I think if this Cresselia doesn't eat an Ivy Cudgel, which I don't expect it to, it could, you could win with Lunar Blessings and burns and stuff like that, but I think this Ogerpon just outputs so much damage.
We see the Ivy Cudgel go into the Cresselia, picks up the sleeping Cresselia, and we see no Protect, no Terrestrialization. We see a Earth Power free. Well, Heatran clicks Earth Power first, actually picking up the Ogerpon. Big damage there from the Heatran.
Not too surprised from that Life Orb Heatran, but the problem of the Gastrodon is still sitting on the field and staring you in the face. This 4-time super effective Earth Power and the Life Orb recoil is just going to start ticking you down, and Heatran just unfortunately gets knocked out there by Andrew's Gastrodon. Andrew's going to take the set 2-0.
Yeah, we talked about how bulky Heatran is, all of its good resistances, but all those good resistances come with a 4x ground weakness when you're not terrestrialized. So Gastrodon was in such a good position there. Really good insight from Andrew to bring it in both games. Even though you see a Rillaboom on the other side, Gastrodon was so influential in both games. A really good team choice there from Andrew.
Yeah, and I think I really liked Dante's gameplay in Game 2, bringing that Landers. I really liked the way they were able to position their Landers that game, kind of cycle in and out of those Intimidates. It was a little lucky that they got flinched that turn. I think they would have been in a better position. Without that flinch, you're able to get rid of the Lando, and the Lando isn't able to go for that extra chip and flinch you down and do the damage that it needs to do. You're able to get a KO on the Landers and bring in the Ogerpon a lot sooner, and you're able to get an extra Intimidator or two on the Ogerpon. So that was a little unfortunate for Donte there.
Andrew's Landorus winning, we assume it was faster, could have won a speed tie twice in a row, but his Landorus moving first was very influential in that match. And when there's a Rock Slide, there's a way.
Of course.
That move is, you don't want to be behind of going first behind a Landorus Rock Slide.
Yeah.
That flinch chance is always very brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. But really well played to Andrew as well. Congratulations on your round 2 win. And we'll be back after a quick break here at the BrookLAN local. We'll be right back.